In this section, I will go through the localization and multi-language support considerations. When we talk about localization of App Store apps, we are often thinking about the app itself. But there are other areas to think about as well. The storefront pages, the app submission pages, this is specifically for publishers like you. Then of course the app itself, and also the installers. I am now going to explain how the Exchange Store is handling these. Since June of 2013, the Exchange Store supports localized versions of the store in 14 different languages. The bottom of each store page provides links to all those language versions of the store pages. By clicking those links, you can switch back and forth between the different language versions of the store. If you would like to add a link to a specific language store, you can use the URL with the appropriate language abbreviation in the URL. For example, EN for English and JA for Japanese. Currently, we list both the localized apps as well as the English apps in each localized store page. This is an example of a specific apps page in a localized language store. This example shows the app page of the app in German. Using the pull-down menu highlighted with the yellow line in the middle of the screen, you can switch between different language versions of the App Store page. For instance, this example shows selection between the English and German language versions of this app. Depending upon the language you choose, the main contents of the page, like the description you see, will display in the chosen language. Also, the screenshots of the app that you see at the bottom of the page are dependent on the store page language. This means you as a publisher will have to localize the screenshots as well and submit them along with your app. This is an example of a localized app submission page. The display language of this page depends on your Autodesk account settings. You can submit your apps for different languages. For instance, on this page you will see two apps. The first one is Your Test App and the second one is My Test App MH. The first app is shown to only support the English language. The second one shows support for German, English and Japanese. If you want to submit different language versions of an app, you can submit the localized versions as a part of the same app submission. This is an example of the second app from the previous slide, My Test App MH. At the bottom, you see the app submission listed for each language. To submit a localized language version of the app, you click the button Add New OS or Language Version, which you will find under the Submit and Delete the App buttons, and fill out all the information about the app for each localized version of your app. This may seem redundant to you, but the reason to do this is when a user chooses a localized version of the app's store page, all the information about your app should appear in that local language. So you should submit all the necessary information for each local language. These are examples of the submission page for a single app in English, Japanese, and German. As you can see, you will have to be prepared to enter information like the app description for each language version of your app. This slide shows very briefly what you could do to actually support multiple languages for your app. We recommend that you use resource DLLs with your app. You will find more information in the link to the blog post provided here. Now about the installers. Installers also need to be presented in local languages. Based on the information you provide during the submission process about your localized apps, the Autodesk Exchange Store packaging team will enter the appropriate information in the installer creation tool. You, as a publisher, do not have to worry about the technical details of localizing the installer, but you need to provide the right information so the localized installer creation process is smooth. Once the installer for your app is created, the right localized version of your app is used based on the locale of the application.